meeting to order. Welcome to meeting number 9 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Industry, Science and Technology. Pursuant to the order of reference of Saturday, April 11th, the committee is meeting for the purpose of receiving evidence concerning matters related to the government's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Today's meeting is taking place by video conference, and the proceedings will be made available via the House of Commons website. As is customary practice, the webcast will always only show the person speaking rather than the entirety of the committee. In order to facilitate the work of our interpreters and ensure an orderly meeting, I would like to outline a few guidelines. 1. Interpretation in this video conference will work very much like in a regular committee meeting. You have the choice at the bottom of your screen to either floor, English, or French. Click on the globe icon to see these options. Before speaking, please wait until I recognize you by name. When you are ready to speak, you can either click on the microphone icon to activate your mic, or you can hold down the space bar while you are speaking. When you release the space bar, your mic will mute itself, very much like a walkie-talkie. A reminder that all comments by members and witnesses should be addressed through the chair. Should members need to request the floor outside of their designated time for questions, they should activate their mic and state that they have a point of order. If a member wishes to intervene on a point of order that has been raised by another member, they should use the raise hand function. This will signal to the chair your interest to speak. In order to do so, you should click on Participants at the bottom of the screen. When the list pops up, you will see next to your name that you can click Raise Hand. When speaking, please speak slowly and clearly. When you are not speaking, your mic should be on mute. The use of headsets is strongly encouraged. Now, should any technical challenges arise, for example, in relation to interpretation, or if you are accidentally disconnected, please advise the chair or the clerk immediately, and the technical team will work to resolve this. Please note that we may need to suspend during these times as we need to ensure all members are able to participate fully. Before we get started, can everyone click on their screen in the top right-hand corner and ensure that they are on gallery view? With this view, you should be able to see all the participants in a grid view. It will ensure that all video participants can see one another. I would ask that if a member needs to leave temporarily for any reason, to please leave their video feed on. During this meeting, we will follow the same rules that usually apply to opening statements and the questioning of witnesses during our regular meetings. As is my normal practice, I will hold up a yellow card when you have 30 seconds left in your intervention, and I will hold up a red card when your time for questions has expired. Today, MP Paul Manley from the Green Party is joining us, and I would like to have a round of questions. Does the committee agree for MP Manley to have a 2.5-minute slot at the end of the second round? Thank you. For today's meeting only...
Madam Chair,
yes.
While I appreciate that the member might want a round of questions, there are precedents here, and the Green Party does not have enough members to have a spot on committee, and anything like this should have been discussed prior to the start of this meeting, as it does set precedent, so I will object.
Thank you, Madam Rempel-Garner, and I understand that one of the Liberal members will share their time with Mr. Manley. For today's meeting, only Minister Ng will be providing an opening statement, and then we will follow the usual rounds of questions from members. The department officials are here to answer your questions. Minister Ng will need to leave this meeting at noon, but senior officials will remain to continue answering questions. I would now like to welcome our witnesses. the Honorable Mary Ng, Minister of Small Business, Export Promotion and International Trade, Mr. John Hannaford, Deputy Minister of International Trade, and from the Department of Industry, we have Mr. Simon Kennedy, Deputy Minister, Mr. Paul Thompson, Associate Deputy Minister, Mrs. Frances McRae, Assistant Deputy Minister, Small Business and Marketplace Services. With that, we will now move to testimony by Minister Ng. Minister Ng, you have 10 minutes. Thank you. Minister Ng, you need to unmute your microphone.
There we go. Okay. Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with this committee about some of our government supports for Canada's small business owners and entrepreneurs. Small businesses are at the heart of communities across the country and truly the backbone of our national economy. They employ 8.3 million hardworking Canadians, nearly 7 out of 10 private sector jobs in this country. So when this pandemic hit Canada and the rest of the world, we knew it was necessary to do everything possible to help them. Small businesses need our support to get through this very difficult time, and we need them to remain pillars of our towns, our cities, and our neighborhoods. Madam Chair, over the past several weeks, my team and I have spoken to thousands upon thousands of small business owners and entrepreneurs in every sector and in every region of the country. We heard that our response to COVID-19 needed to be flexible and balanced. Flexible because the situation we face is unprecedented. There is no template to work from. Circumstances and challenges are still evolving at a rapid pace. And balanced because we need to meet the needs of all small business owners during these challenging times, and there is no one-size-fits-all approach to relief. Small businesses, because of their size, are often more entrepreneurial, more nimble, and very in touch with their customers and their communities. This is often their key to success, but it also makes them vulnerable during times like these. When Canadians are asked to stay home, they're not able to eat out at their favorite restaurant, go to an appointment at their therapist's or at their salon, or travel or stay at a hotel or a bed and breakfast. If you're an entrepreneur who invested everything in a community theater or a pub or a bakery, you're feeling the brunt of COVID-19. You probably have had to close your doors, and your sales have probably taken a huge hit, or they have disappeared entirely. And when people are asked to stay at home, they're likely going to delay major purchases. So if you're a business that sells cars, technology, or furniture, you've taken a huge hit too. And then there are the service providers that we normally interact with every day. Our dry cleaners, the yoga studio, the daycares, the hair salon. They're feeling the effects of having to temporarily close their doors. And if you're in the business of moving people or goods, like our taxi drivers or delivery service workers, your revenue has been impacted too. The harsh reality is that the majority of our entrepreneurs and small business owners are facing serious challenges, and it happened almost overnight. For a small business to get over the challenges of this pandemic, they're likely facing at least 3 major threats: keeping their employees, keeping their costs low, and of course, covering their operating costs. Our government has taken serious and decisive action to address each of these threats. Madam Chair, I grew up in a small business, and I know that it often is a family affair. 75% of Canadian small businesses have fewer than 10 employees, and you often know each other's birthdays, your kids' names, your spouses. And from my own experience and through conversations with many small business owners, I know that employers often think of their teams as their extended family. We also know that in order for a business to remain resilient through difficulty and to recover more quickly after a challenging time, the team must stay together. That's why one of our most important initiatives is the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy. Through this wage subsidy, we will keep more Canadians employed by covering 75% of their wages. Our goal is to keep businesses together so they have the required skills and the expertise on hand to help them ramp back up when the economy restarts. We're also helping over 3.2 million businesses and self-employed Canadians keep their costs low by allowing them to defer the GST or the HST and customs duty payments. And they can keep more money in their pockets over the next few weeks and months because we've extended the tax filing deadline to June the 1st, and we've allowed businesses to defer any payments they owe until August the 31st. We're also helping businesses keep up with their operating costs and their cash flow with the Canada Emergency Business Account. This is an interest-free $40,000 loan guarantee by the Government of Canada with up to $10,000 forgivable if you pay it back by the end of 2022. These loans are available through your bank or credit union, your financial institution right now. When we heard that many small businesses were not able to access this support because of the requirement to have payroll of at least $50,000, we lowered that threshold to $20,000. Madam Chair, the common thread between all of these initiatives is that they're going to help our small businesses retain the people that they need and have the operating funds necessary to help them get through this difficult period and to succeed in the long term. To date, over 382,000 businesses have already been approved for the small business loan. And our government's recent announcement to expand the eligibility criteria for the program will mean that even more businesses will qualify. This cash flow support means your favorite restaurant can keep their lights on while they switch over to delivery service. It means that small furniture store that usually relies on foot traffic to stay afloat can continue paying the costs and the upkeep of their warehouse space. It means that local bed and breakfast can maintain their property while they've had to temporarily close their doors. And for those businesses with larger operational needs, we have made loans available of up to $12.5 million, which will also be available through your local financial institution, your bank or credit union. We've also heard from businesses that they need help paying their rent, and that's exactly what we intend to do. As the Prime Minister announced last week, we will introduce a Canada Emergency Rent Assistance for small businesses. This program will provide loans and forgivable loans to commercial property owners who will in turn lower the rent for small business owners. Rent is an issue that falls under the jurisdiction of provinces and territories, so we're working closely in active discussions with them on this important issue, and we will have more details to share soon. Madam Chair, our government has acted fast, and we've introduced broad measures to help small businesses from coast to coast to coast. We have also introduced targeted measures to help businesses in the Northern Territories, Indigenous and youth-owned businesses, and innovative businesses at the startup stage that would have yet to turn a profit. These measures will help businesses weather the storm, but we know that the introduction of measures is only a first step. We need to help businesses access these supports in order for them to benefit, and that's why we have leveraged the Canada Innovation Portal or the Canada Business App to help steer small businesses to the right supports. And it's also why we partnered with the Canadian Chamber of Commerce to create the Canada Business Resilience Network. This is going to help small business owners have the most up-to-date information on the supports that are available to them. Madam Chair, I'd like to close by thanking the many small businesses who are providing essential services to so many of our communities across the country through this very difficult and challenging time. My colleagues and I have heard from countless stories of entrepreneurs in communities across the country that are going beyond the call of duty. I'm talking about those businesses and the entrepreneurs who put up their hand to offer technical skills, to find new ways to produce items that are in short supply, and the restaurant owner who's offering free meals to the frontline healthcare workers, or the innovative businesses that are finding new ways to create medical gear for frontline healthcare workers. The resilience of our Canadian business owners and our entrepreneurs is second to none. And to all of those hard-working business owners, thank you. Madam Chair, we're all in this together. I appreciate this committee's support of our efforts during this difficult time. And together, We're going to help our small businesses survive this pandemic and pave the way for our economy to recover. We're going to continue to work hard to save those Canadian jobs, help Canadians save those businesses. And I want to thank you for the opportunity for me to speak to you today, and I would be pleased to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. And now we will move to round one.
Madam Chair, I'd like to point of order. We're just learning that the Minister is leaving right at noon, and I have huge concerns. I'm a standing member. I don't think the NDP should be punished for the delay in the meeting, and we want to make sure we have a round. We have very important questions to ask the Minister, and I'm asking the government side to maybe rotate their spot and give it up to the NDP, and they take our spot so that we get a chance to ask really important questions to the Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johns. I will verify with the Minister. Is it possible that she can stay for the full four questions of the first round?
I believe I can. I'm just going to take a quick look in my calendar here. Let me just have a look. Yes, my calendar is okay, and I would be very pleased to do that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Minister. And with that, we will start with the four rounds of questions of 6 minutes each. The first person for the Conservative Party is Madam Rempel-Garner. You have 6 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to note that, we had close to 45 minutes of sound checks and then 10 minutes of explanation on how to use Zoom. So I hope that can be rectified in the future, just so that we do have more time to question the government and scrutinize this issue. I would like to start with a couple of housekeeping items. I note that we did invite the Minister of Industry to this committee. The Minister of Industry has not appeared before this committee at all in this Parliament. And that's, we're quite a few months away from the election at this point in time. Even though he's been invited several times, his schedule, as it was this time, has always been told to this committee that he's not available or that he can't find time in his schedule. And I just find that completely unacceptable. I hope that my colleagues on the government side actually share my concern that he has elected to not find time to be accountable to this committee at all. So as such, I move pursuant to Section 1N of the motion passed in the House of Commons on Saturday, April the 11th, that the Minister of Industry, Innovation and Science appear before the Standing Committee on Industry on any day of the week that accommodates his schedule at any time before April 30th for a meeting of 2 hours on the subject of the COVID-19 pandemic.
And we have a motion on the floor. Is there any debate? This is an invitation for the minister to appear before April 30th at his convenience. I understand that he was invited, but unfortunately was not available today. So do we have any debate?
Just a question for the clerk. Has the minister's office responded to provide available dates?
Not yet. They just said that they were looking to do the schedule and hopefully have an appearance in the coming weeks.
Okay, so they're obviously amenable to coming, and of course the Minister of Industry should come before this committee.
Madam Chair, if I may, coming weeks is not acceptable. It's been months since the election. The minister has not appeared before for things like estimates, his mandate letter, and he's a key member of the COVID-19 response cabinet committee. Weeks, like if we're talking about him coming in weeks, I can't imagine somebody sitting at home in their lockdown right now going, well, he can't find time for weeks. He needs to be before this committee before April 30th. It is completely unacceptable. I am willing to meet whenever he wants to meet. I don't care if it's 2 a.m. at this point in time. He needs to get before this committee. It is ridiculous that he has not been here. Weeks is not acceptable. Like, brushing this committee off is not acceptable, especially when what the government said last week was that somehow we were going to be able to do Parliament virtually. And then to have the minister just blow us off, he needs to be here for 2 full hours before next Thursday. It's ridiculous. And I don't want to hear any excuses from him on, I can't make a certain time or a teleconference is going to work. Find the time and get here. And that is the nature of this motion.
Is there any further debate on the motion?
Madam Chair, I agree that the minister should attend next week. It would be ideal. We've got Minister Ng here today. We should, I think, have the industry minister, innovation minister before us in the first few meetings that we have to set the course for our work. I would object a little bit to the framing of this. I mean, as anyone who follows parliamentary process knows, we didn't really hit the ground running with this committee until the end of January, and we have not had all that many meetings of actual work, frankly, other than planning meetings. So I don't know that there has been any delay previously from the minister to say blowing us off, I think is overstating the case. But I do agree with Ms. Rempel-Garner that, of course, Minister Baines should attend before this committee, and I agree that he should attend next week.
Any further debate on the motion?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I'll just interject one last time here. I would just say this: the minister actually has blown us off. He has not found time to appear on the estimates. He hasn't been before this committee at all, and we have had meetings that he could have attended. So, and certainly, like, it's within the purview of our committee to say we will accommodate him whenever he wants to. It just needs to happen before next week. It's too much at this point.
Again, is there any further debate on this? What we can do is we can move to adopt the motion to invite the minister to appear. All in favor? If you could raise your hands, please. I'm sorry, because I can't see everybody. All opposed?
Actually, Madam Chair, point of order.
Yep.
I believe that the motion passed in the House of Commons requires a recorded vote on motions related to the witness. So I call for a recorded vote. Thank you.
Okay, the question is on Ms. Rempel-Garner's motion with regard to inviting the minister to appear at committee. Mr. Erskine-Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Longfield.
Against.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Against.
Mr. Jahowri.
Yes. Support.
Mr. Essasi. Mr. Essasi. Okay. I'm taking that as a yes. Ms. Lambropoulos.
Actually, clerk, point of order. You actually should hear him. I don't want to have a legislative debate if Mr. Johari has not verbalized his response. So I just think we need to set precedent here.
Mr. Essasi.
Yes.
Ms. Rempel-Garner.
Yes.
Mr. Dreeshen.
Yes.
Ms. Gray.
Yes.
Mr. Patzer.
Yes.
Mr. Johns.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, the motion carries.
Yeah, you skipped over my name, and I'm also in favor.
Oh, sorry, we had the point of order. Yes, sorry. Ms. Lambropoulos has voted in favor. Thank you.
Mr. Lemire, oui.
Mr. Lemire, yes. Sorry, Mr. Lemire.
Looks 10-1 in favor.
The motion is therefore adopted. We now move to the next round of 6-minute.
Oh no, Madam Chair, point of order. My question time does not count toward, or the time of a motion does not count towards my question period. So I stopped at 1:36 when I moved the motion. Okay. So I do have another 4 minutes. Thank you.
Let me just restart my clock, Madame Rempel. One moment.
Thank you.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. I also would like to get consensus from the committee that it's my understanding that the House of Commons will be having a virtual sitting on Tuesday, which is when this committee is supposed to sit. I would like to get confirmation from you, Madam Chair, that you will find an alternate time that does not negate our meeting next week, that we still have 2 meetings.
We are currently scheduled to have 2 meetings next week, both Tuesdays and Thursday. I have not heard otherwise. I will advise the committee if there is a change. Absolutely.
The question that I asked was not that. It was, should the House of Commons proceedings bump this meeting if you will do everything in your power to ensure that we have 2 meetings next week, regardless of if another time needs to be found?
Again, rest assured that I'm working in the event that this normal meeting slot is moved, that we will make sure that we have meetings next week.
So that's a yes. We will have 2 meetings next week, regardless of if the House of Commons sits.
Madam Rempel-Garner, I will do everything I can to make sure that we have those 2 meetings. Everything depends on the resources available to us, but rest assured, I will do everything in my power to make sure that we have those 2 meetings.
I appreciate that, but I'd like to have a yes or a no answer to this question, because the whole debate that we had last week in the House of Commons was whether or not the scrutiny of Parliament could happen via a virtual setting. And so to hear from you, everything in my power, depending on resources, that's not acceptable, because Canadians are looking to us right now to ensure that we have these sessions. So what all I want is a simple yes. If the House of Commons bumps this committee, in a regular sitting of Parliament, committees happen at the same time the House of Commons is sitting. You will ensure, even if it's not at the same time, even if it's later in the evening, even if it's early in the morning, that we will have 2 meetings next week.
Madame Rempel-Garner, I don't control the resources that are available at the House, but you have my commitment that in the event that this meeting is not able to happen between 11 and 1 next week because of the virtual sitting of Parliament, that I will do everything I can to find an alternative time so that we can have these meetings.
I guess that's the best the opposition is going to get. Maybe. All right, a question to the Minister. Has your government begun any kind of formally structured federal government-led national economic relaunch strategy that includes safe and staged lifting of mass isolation measures?
Thank you very much for the member, Madam Rempel-Garner, for that question. The work that we are engaged in and have been engaged in is ensuring that we are providing measures, economic measures, to help Canadian small businesses and entrepreneurs through this very difficult time so that we can flatten the curve as a country.
So my question was not that. It was, do you have a formal plan to lift mass isolation measures safely and in a staged approach so that we can start the economy? And if not, why?
You've heard from the Prime Minister that he and the Deputy Prime Minister are working closely with colleagues and at the provincial and at the territorial level. The work that I am seized with and that we are focused on is making sure that businesses across the country are getting the support that they need, whether it is helping them keep their staff.
Yes, but the best way for the businesses to get support is to get back to work and reopen. So when can the Canadian economy expect to reopen safely? And when will you table a plan or tell Canadians what your plan is for that timeline?
The work that we're doing right now, and it's a Team Canada approach, is to flatten the curve so that Canadians are safe and that they are healthy. And the extraordinary measures that we're asking Canadians to do to flatten this curve is, I would agree, I hope everyone will agree, is job one, which is why we have the measures that we have right now to make sure that.
But why is it a binary? Why can't we do both? We need to start talking about doing both because our economy is suffering. So when are you going to table a plan to safely reopen the economy while stopping the spread of COVID? When can we expect that?
We're going to keep working with Canadian businesses just as we have during this time. We're listening to businesses. The measures that you see, the economic measures, are in response to what they need to manage through this difficult period. We're also listening to those businesses about what it is that they are going to need.
Well, here's what I'm hearing.
Good footing.
We need a plan to reopen the economy. So when are you guys going to at least give some timeline or indication that you have a plan to do both, flatten the curve and reopen the economy? These businesses need to reopen. They don't need handouts for 18 months. They need a plan to get back to work. So when is that plan forthcoming?
The measures that we have put in place is to help businesses manage through this time and to get them on good foot so that when it is safe to do so, when it is safe to restart the economy, that we are working
When will it be safe? What are you doing to make it safe?
We are listening.
What about testing? What is that time period? If I'm a small business right now, I need to know this to make plans on whether or not I'm going to close up shop permanently or keep trying to stay alive. That's your job. You have to start telling people when we are going to reopen the economy.
We're working very intently with businesses who are telling us that they need to be able to access some cash flow so that they can manage through this period.
Yes, cash flow from doing their work.
They're telling
like from actually doing their business, like selling things and being open. Like, you have to understand that businesses don't just want handouts from the government. They want a plan to know when they can get back to work. So when is that plan forthcoming? Like, when are you guys going to start talking timelines and staging and testing?
Well, in talking to the thousands upon thousands of businesses, including the over 1,000 businesses that my department talks to every day, the questions that I am getting very much from businesses as recent as yesterday and today is, how do I access getting the support to keep my team together during this period so that we can be on that road to recovery when it's safe to do so. We're absolutely
So you don't have any timeline. I'll phrase it differently. Do you have any timeline to reopen the economy? Is there any chat about a timeline or a staged approach or anything, like any sort of timeline whatsoever that is coming up in your cabinet discussions, in your department? Like, do you have any glimmer of hope for people in terms of a plan?
Well, the glimmer of hope for Canadian businesses is just how incredibly resilient they are. And they are incredibly innovative. They're stepping up to, to serve the needs of helping our frontline healthcare workers and those essential
When
workers.
Are you going to reopen the economy?
I'm going to continue to listen to businesses across the country so that they are supported through this period. And we're going to listen to those businesses as we help them through
no plan.
Through the restart,
no
and through
timeline.
the recovery.
That is mind-blowing.
And unfortunately, that is your time. The next round of questions, 6 minutes, is MP Longfield. You have the floor for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to Minister Ng for coming in this morning and all the great work you're doing with all parties through this crisis that we're facing. I'll be splitting my time with Mr. Manley from the Green Party. The last 2.5 minutes of my questions will be turned over to him, because this really isn't a partisan issue. It's something that we should be working on together. So I appreciate Mr. Manley being here to be able to ask questions as well. My first question is regarding the virtual town halls that you've been involved with, Minister Ng, and I know that you will be doing one in Guelph on May 7th with the Chamber of Commerce at 6 p.m. We are hearing a lot from our business communities. I've heard that the moving the CEBA limit down to $20,000 to help businesses that have one part-time employee at minimum wage is helping them. I've also heard you mentioned on the rent and relief on rent is something that we're working on. I think that's the biggest issue that sole proprietors and small businesses are facing. And would you be able to comment on the rent and the progress that we're making there, as well as anything that you're hearing from the town halls that you weren't able to give us in the 10 minutes that you had to speak?
Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate that question. One of the things that we heard very clearly from businesses is the help that they're going to need to manage through their bills every single month. And those are those operating costs, which rent is a key part of. You heard the Prime Minister announce that we intend to support businesses, small businesses, through the Canada Emergency Commercial Rent support. And we hope to announce that very soon. We are in active discussions with the provinces and territories. This is an area of their responsibility. And but we all agree. We all agree that we have to work together in order to support all of those incredible entrepreneurs and businesses across the country, so that they are being helped with that rent support. And rent support is part of operating costs. It's a significant part of operating costs. And I have heard from businesses, in fact, literally all across the country, that they are being helped with the $40,000 interest-free loan. $10,000 of that is forgivable, and this is the kind of sort of bridging cash flow work that we are doing to help businesses. And you heard me say earlier, over 380,000 business owners have already been approved for that loan.
Great. Well, thank you. And May 1st is coming, so I hope we do hear about that rent soon. It continues to be a stress point. Another stress point is with other economies, in particular the United States opening up its economy, and we have a lot of Canadian small businesses that are in the supply chain for the American companies that may be needing our goods and services. We have BDC and EDC providing some lines of credit to help businesses that are starting, even though the rest of the country and their customers in Canada aren't being able to access their services. How is that going, in particular with EDC and BDC financing on lines of credit? I haven't heard much in terms of how that program's working, if it's being progressed. And we have about a minute or so, and then over to Mr. Manley.
Thank you very much. We are making progress, and what we've done here as part of the business supports, the lending support to businesses, and it is and BDC and EDC absolutely have taken on significant and important roles here. And what they've essentially done is provided the significant government guarantees to financial institutions. During this very difficult period, we want to make sure that businesses are able to access that lending support through their financial institution. So whether it is the bank or the credit union that you work with, and because the network, the banking network and the credit union network exists all across the country and is easily available, more easily available than the BDC, EDC offices, teams, we're just making available through there. So absolutely, go to the financial institution, and that's where they're getting the help.
Thank you. And over to you, Mr. Manley.
Well, thank you very much, MP Longfield, for sharing your time with me. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak and to ask questions. And thank you, Minister Ng, for being here. I appreciate the openness of the government to respond to emails that we've sent with different issues. Small businesses in my community are asking about the rent situation as well, and there's suggestions that there be some kind of loan that covers 75% of the rent, that where 50% of it, 75% of the rent would go to the landlord, 25% would still be covered by the tenants, and that hopefully the federal government will forgive part of the loan to the landlords. There's a lot of small businesses I'm hearing from right now that are really worried about not being able to cover their rent for May. And so I'm just wondering if there's a plan and if that sounds like something that would be feasible to you in terms of a program.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Manley, and I really want to thank you and indeed all colleagues who have been so open at being able to share the issues that you have in your own communities. We're really looking forward to being able to give you that information and to businesses the information about the rent support, and we will and I do believe that support is really going to help, because we've been listening to you and colleagues and businesses in particular to make sure that we get that support out to them.
And I know a lot of businesses are really wanting to get started up again, but they
Unfortunately, Mr. Manley, apologies, that's the end of the time. Our next round of questions is with Député Lemire. Vous avez 6 minutes.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll ask my first question, and my colleague will ask the next ones. First of all, I would like to mention that the Independent Business Federation carried out a number of surveys with its members. 77 of the people who answered said they have trouble with cash flow. 75 are concerned about debts. Some are concerned about having to close their doors all once and for all, and 9% say they need help, but they're not admissible to the various programs. That was something that was published in April. There was your announcement of the April 17th came after that. I was happy to see that announcement. I sent you an email to say that part of the solution should go through a network. There are a number of holes in the safety nets. The property owner, business owners who pay themselves through dividends are in trouble. But there was a nice announcement on the 17th of April. They can go through the Community Development Network or through DEC, the regional development organizations. My trouble as a regional member is that I have to give vague answers when people really need help. When can we have the detail of what is available?
Thank you, Mr. Lemaire, and it's in French, but I'm.
Merci. Thank you, Mr. Lemaire.
And I really want to thank you for your advocacy as well, and for the work that you're doing. And certainly in your region in northern Quebec. And we've said right from the beginning that we were going to help businesses through this time. And helping businesses means keeping those businesses intact and helping them keep their teams together. And I know that there are businesses, who are continuing to look for support, particularly the small business loan support, and know that we are listening and we are going to continue to do that work. But the Regional Development Agency, particularly in Quebec, we have just made an investment to the regional development agencies across the country of just a little over $600 million, as well as through Community Future. So these are organized. This is well known in the region around the support for small enterprises, and together the many measures that we have put in place is intended to make sure that we don't have businesses fall through the gaps, and that we are helping them through this very, very important and very, very difficult time. And I want to thank you for your work and your advocacy for your businesses. And the last thing I would say is Innovation Canada, or the Canada Business app. That's where we made available information available on all the programs, because I know how difficult it could be, because there's many.
S'il vous plaît, Madame la Ministre, la question était simplement.
My question was when we would have details. In order that we can ask more questions, I'd let my colleague.
Merci.
We have onboarded many institutions across the country as well, which businesses can go directly into to get financial support, and businesses can absolutely, be in touch with the Regional Development Agency in Quebec to get that support.
Merci. Comme je disais, la question était quand ces mesures-là vont être annoncées dans le détail. Mais bon, je laisse la parole à Simon-Pierre Savard-Tremblay. Merci.
My question was to when the measures would be announced, but I'll let my colleague pitch in. I had a few questions. Since we haven't had the answer to my preceding question, when will the measures be announced, the detail of the measures?
Because we understand how urgent the situation is for Canadian businesses. But I would say that there are many measures that are absolutely available to Canadian small businesses. Going into your financial institution is to get access to the small business loan is already there. The Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, the calculator was launched yesterday to help businesses calculate the wage subsidy support for their employees. That portal is open on Monday. For the entrepreneur or the sole proprietor that is seeing their income completely, decreased, if they're making just a little less than $1,000, the Canada Emergency response benefit is already open. So there are many, many measures that already are available to help our Canadian businesses through this very difficult time. And we understand that we need to continue doing the work. And I appreciate your advocacy for them. And we will continue to do this work for our Canadian small businesses.
Reste-t-il du temps?
Is there any time left? Six seconds. I'll wait until the next time.
Thank you very much. The next 6-minute round will go to Ms. MP Gord-Johns. You have 6 minutes.
Thank you, Minister, for being here. As you know, we've just heard recently that the Restaurant Association of Canada says that 1 out of 2 independent restaurants don't expect to reopen. The BC Chamber of Commerce in British Columbia has also identified that over 50% of businesses that are closed right now don't expect to reopen as well. We know how important rent is. Australia has a confederation as well. Like Canada, they've worked with the provinces. They've come up with an agreement. We presented an agreement 2 weeks ago. My colleague Peter Julian and I, we were happy to see the Prime Minister 5 days later commit to rent abatement. The problem is it's 9 days ago, where tomorrow is 1 week away from half of businesses in this country not able to pay their rent. We're on the verge, we're on the cliff right now of losing half of the small businesses in this country. One of my constituents, Amy Haddikin, she owns a Kickstart Fitness and Yoga studio in Parksville, showed up and her doors were locked. She was able to negotiate paying the triple net, which is $1,700 from zero revenue right now, to pay that to get the locks taken off and buy some time. They need to know when you're going to have this agreement in place. It's a week out. Are you going to have a deal done by the end of the week with the provinces so that you can provide relief? And they're not looking for loans. They're looking for subsidies to help them get through this. They can't afford more debt or they're going to walk away.
Well, Mr. Johns, thank you so very much. And I appreciate this very much. And indeed, I need to thank you for your work, because you and I have spoken throughout this time of COVID-19. So I really do appreciate your input, and this is really sort of a Team Canada approach. So I appreciate that. And as someone who grew up, as a young person in the restaurant business, I understand how important and how valuable.
I appreciate that.
Are.
Really, what I need to know is when.
We're working.
The time's running out. We're on the cliff of losing half of the businesses in this country. They need to know tomorrow so they can start negotiating with their landlords, Minister. So if you can give us a timeline, are you going to have a deal done by the weekend?
We're working really hard at that. The Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister, we're all working hard to make sure that with the provinces and the territories, we're able to come up with that support for our Canadian businesses. So as fast as we can. And I understand the urgency. I really, really do.
We are on a historic moment, Madam Minister Ng. We are hearing that businesses under 5 employees from the BC Chamber of Commerce as well, 49% of them can't find federal programs that suit their needs. I know that you've made amendments in terms of the Canadian Emergency Bank Account. You've lowered the threshold on payroll and you've upped it. The problem is a lot of proprietors are still falling through the gaps. They're not able to access that loan. I'll give you an example. Christy Stroger-Lotzen, who owns Soak Essentials in Parksville, British Columbia, she has a payroll of $18,000. She can't access the Canadian Emergency Business Account. We're going to put forward a proposal today, the NDP, that you use another measurement, to consider another measurement, that is gross revenue, so that you're not just focused on payroll, and that those proprietors can demonstrate, say you have a gross revenue of $200,000 a year and you're collecting $14,000 a year in GST or the portion of the HST. Over 3 years, you'd collect $42,000. So the risk to the government is low by giving them the loan and the rebate versus losing that business and losing all of that tax collection. Will you consider looking at another measurement so that people get the support they need?
We've said right from the beginning that we are going to always listen to businesses to make sure that we are getting the support out to them. And I really appreciate what you have shared. I would also say the work isn't done, and we are going to intently and continue to do this work to help support businesses just like the one that you just described. And I really want to thank you for that work.
hours matter on this, Madam Minister. The other person, Lisa Bernard Christensen, so she runs a business, a dog grooming business. She leases out chairs to other in her salon to other groomers, and she basically collects rent from them. It's a flow through. That rent goes right to the landlord. So right now through CERB, she can't collect any CERB, even though she's running at a massive, like she's pouring red ink right now and losing money because of the stipulation that says employment or self-employed income is the measurement. So she may be collecting money from other chairs and submitting it to the landlord, but she's losing money and can't qualify for CERB. She's got a son who's diabetic. She's, can't buy food right now. And the government needs to look at this and fix it. Can you look at gross profit instead of employment income as a measurement so that self-employed people that aren't able to access these benefits get the support they need now?
Well, Mr. Johns, thank you very much for that. And, as I said right from the get-go, our work isn't done. And we continue to hear from businesses, and we will continue to take that input for businesses. I'm going to keep working hard. Our government is going to keep working hard to make sure that we are supporting those very incredible businesses and entrepreneurs who make up such, who are such contributors.
She's running out of money, and she needs help now. Minister Ng, I just talked to the Hawaiian First Nation. They can't access the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy because they have a limited partnership. They're an Indigenous-owned corporation. They're going to have to send their employees home. They've been working for years to get to this place, and there should be no reason that they're excluded. Was this oversight, or will you be able to fix this immediately and save this Indigenous-led tourism-based business?
We have provided extraordinary support to Indigenous-led businesses through the AFIs and through organizations like NACA. My colleague, Minister Miller, has been working. We've been working together to make sure that support absolutely goes to these incredible businesses, Indigenous-led, Indigenous-owned businesses, and happy to follow up on that business in particular, but we have put out significant supports because we do want to see those businesses weathered through this period.
Minister, I'm sorry, Minister, I'm going to have to cut you off. That's the time for that round. We now move to the 5-minute rounds. The first member of Parliament will be MP Dreeshen. You have 5 minutes.
Is it my turn?
Yes.
Okay, so I can't hear you. So perhaps, Madam Chair, could I make sure that I understand what it is that you're saying?
Mr. Dreeshen, can you hear me now?
Okay, I can read your lips, but I can't hear you.
Okay, we're going to suspend for 1 moment just so that we can make sure that MP Dreeshen has the ability to participate. 1 moment.
I'm sorry, I cannot hear you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Minister Ng, I've heard concerns from many small business owners in my community regarding the support programs that your government has established. And for example, owner-operators who use their personal bank accounts to operate their businesses, and they're not applicable for the Canada Emergency Bank account because of this. Is your government addressing this gap?
Thank you very much, MP Gray, for that information. I'm happy to listen to the concerns of those businesses in particular. I have to admit that this is the first time I've heard of that particular scenario. So happy to continue to do a follow up after this.
Okay, Minister Ng, as well, with the requirement for the $20,000 payroll that small businesses have to have in order to be able to access the CEBA loan. This doesn't work for a lot of small business owners, especially owner operators, because they don't have traditional payroll. Is your government addressing this? Well, what we've done is we've provided many measures to help Canadian small businesses. And as I said a little earlier, we've seen about 380,000 small business owners who are taking advantage of the small business loan. And these numbers are just coming in, and this is just on the cusp of of the expanded criteria to 20,000. So many businesses are absolutely being supported through this measure. And as I said, the work isn't done. We're going to have to continue to work with many more businesses. We certainly don't want to see people fall behind. Okay, fair enough. So the other question that I have is regarding models and projections on a timeline for reopening the economy. And based off of information from Health Canada and provincial testing capabilities, can you give us information as to what the plan is and when we can expect the economy to reopen? Well, right now, as I said a little earlier, we are all working together to plank the curve. We are all working together to keep Canadians safe. And the measures that we are putting out, we are helping businesses to help keep their staff. We are helping businesses manage through this period with their cash flow. So, and we're going to keep listening to businesses. They contributed to how we are providing the solutions and these emergency measures for them. We're also going to listen to them to make sure that we get them on good footing in preparation for a restart. My time is limited here, so I do want to ask a few more questions. So some other countries are further along the curve, such as South Korea and Germany, and they've relied on mass testing to be able to open up their economy sooner. And I know a lot of people in my riding that had symptoms where they were begged to be tested and they weren't. And one family in particular finally were tested and they tested positive. So how's the government, are you working with your international counterparts to take good practices to apply here in order to open our economy? Absolutely. My colleague, the health minister, works regularly with her international partners, as does the chief medical of health, who is a part of the World Health Organization's advisory team, and we are looking at at practices. But what we are also doing is making sure that here in Canada and across all regions in Canada, that job one is to make sure that we are stopping the spread of COVID-19, in the meanwhile supporting businesses during this time so that they have the best possible opportunity at restart. Minister, so how is the government studying other models in order to open the economy? I think that with respect to studying other models, I think that question is probably better put to my colleague, who's the health minister and the chief medical health officer. Of course, we are working as a whole of government approach, and our focus has absolutely been on making sure that our businesses right now are supported through this very difficult time, so that we can help them be primed for that recovery when it is safe to do so. So. The other question that I have has to do with working with your provincial counterparts for testing. So it's really important that we move essential health equipment such as test kits interprovincially, and that we ramp up testing with the provinces where they need it most. So is your government working with the provincial counterparts to make sure that the supply chains remain open and that the testing is happening across the country and that the tests get to where they need it most as quickly as possible? I think that testing question is best suited for my colleague, the health minister.
Thank you, Minister. Unfortunately, that's the end of your time, MP Gray. The next 5-minute round will go to MP Assassi. You have 5.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Minister, for appearing before our committee. I wanted to, right off the bat, thank you and your officials for having worked tirelessly over the course of the past month, and for having made changes to certain programs once you heard from various members across the country. Now, allow me to start off with the first question that was put to you. There was an attempt by one of the members to perhaps imply that you like the situation we're currently in. I know that given your background and given your experience, that you certainly appreciate the hardship that businesses are going through, but you don't want to act in a reckless manner. You know that it's important that our government actually collaborate with the provinces and municipalities, that we do take the best advice from public health officials. Would it be fair to say, unlike what the member was implying, that you're very much concerned about all the hardships that businesses are going through at this point?
Well, thank you very much for that question. And absolutely, this is an unprecedented circumstance, and it is very difficult on so many people across the country. I have personally talked to many, and my teams have talked to many. So I mean, into the thousands, and there's no question this is absolutely hard. And everything we are doing is to try to help them weather through this very unprecedented time. I would also perhaps reference a quote from the Business Council of Canada, and the president of the Business Council of Canada that represents many Canadian businesses. Who says and wrote, moving too quickly will risk a resurgence of the virus, setting back the health of Canadians and indeed economic recovery. So we're guided by science, we're guided by the medical advice, and job one here is to stop and slow the spread of this disease. And in doing so, we need to support our businesses. We need to support our smallest of businesses, those entrepreneurs who have spent their life creating that that opportunity. As an immigrant myself who came to this country and grew up in exactly one of those businesses, not only do I understand how hard it was, but that hard work is also your life's work. So what are we trying to do? We're trying to save jobs, and we're trying to save businesses, and we're trying to help Canadians through this, and we're helping. And what we need to do is take the advice to make sure that we are also doing it in a way that keeps Canadians safe and continues to keep Canadians safe.
Thank you. Now, my next question was, obviously we all appreciate how important entrepreneurs and startups are. This is really a time for innovative thinking, and a lot of them are at the intersection of science and technology, and it's imperative that we provide them the necessary tools. Could you tell me what you're doing to assist entrepreneurs and startups?
Absolutely. I mean, when we heard at the very beginning that the wage subsidy, for example, was not covering those companies that were sort of, that are starting up, but that also had employees because the threshold, the revenue reduction threshold, was not something they could do comparing this year to last year because they are a startup. They're new. We changed that so that they can use January, February as the baseline for this year. So that's newer businesses, but those startup, innovative, high growth businesses also need our support. And just a few days ago, the Prime Minister announced that we are helping those high growth, startup type businesses, innovative businesses to get the support they need to weather through this period through the Industrial Research and Assistance Program. It's a $270 million program. And a component of that also goes to young entrepreneurs, because we know that those very young entrepreneurs are also part of those innovative businesses.
Thank you for that. And Minister, also allow me to echo what MP Gray said. I have heard from a few businesses which would have qualified for the Canada Emergency Business Account, but for one factor, and that was that they didn't have pre-existing business accounts. So I would be grateful if you could kindly look into that and we could provide assistance to those businesses as well.
You have my commitment to look into that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That is the end of your 5 minutes, Mr. Assassi. Minister, I just want to verify with you. I know you said you could stay a little bit past 12. Are you able to continue to stay?
I am told by my team that I must get on to the next commitment. So I apologize for that. And I want to thank everyone, Madam Chair, all the members on the committee, how wonderful it is to be back at INDU. Before being the minister, I served on INDU. So I actually served with a number of people here on the committee. So it's really nice to be back at INDU, and talking to all of my colleagues. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Minister. And I understand that we have the Director General Investment and Innovation, Emmanuel Kamarianakis, and the Director General of Trade Negotiations, Kendall Hembroff, who are also joining us. So we will continue along. We have the departmental officials with us. And so the next 5-minute round is with Mr. Dreeshen. Mr. Dreeshen, can you hear me now? Mr. Dreeshen, you're muted.
Yes, I can hear you. Okay, much better.
You have 5 minutes, sir.
Well, thank you very much. And I believe that I will be speaking to the Deputy Minister and so on. Just a few points, of course. One of the things that we've seen, and this is why it's so important to have a relaunch strategy. We are seeing some small businesses, in the downtowns of some of these small communities that everything has been shut down. But meanwhile, you go into a larger community and all the box stores are busy. They're busy. People are in there. They are buying things that typically would have been for sale in our small communities. And so this is why it's so important to get a relaunch strategy sorted out. I come from a rural part of Canada, and so we know that there are differences that you have between high places where the density is much higher. So I think that's really something that's critical. And and these small businesses, they know how to do the social distancing. They know how the isolation methods and so on. But unfortunately, they're not being given a chance. And quite frankly, some of the measures that have been put forward is so difficult for them to be able to survive through. So I think that's one of the key points that I wanted to talk about. But again, some of the discussions that the government's had, I know last week, this government made a commitment to expand access to credit for small and medium oil and gas companies across Canada. And so far, there's been no dollar amount that has been provided, nor has there been any discussion of the financial mechanisms that the government plans to use in this regard. And we know how serious this is as an issue for small and medium enterprises here in my home province of Alberta. Billions of dollars of investment have left because of other things that have taken place in government over the last 5 years. But right now, the situation is even more dire and desperate. So my question then is, when can we see this vital sector of Canada's economy expect the government, and when can we expect the government to follow through on its commitment of last week and to provide tangible liquidity assistance? And with that, I'm not just asking what agencies or departments will be providing the interest. What the small and medium enterprises need to know is, when will this liquidity help come, and how much help can they expect to see at that point in time?
So, Madam Chair, I think that's probably a question that is best directed towards the Finance Minister. My understanding is that BDC is working with financial institutions on the oil and gas package. I don't know whether my colleagues who are with me today would wish to add more, but I'm not in a position at the moment to provide you a specific timeline, as that's not we're not leading that. That's being done by other colleagues, but we all understand the urgency. I don't know if others on the line wish to weigh in.
Well, that's great, but if you could just let me interject for a moment. I think everyone, when they hear oil and gas, they think that this is big companies and so on. But quite frankly, it's a lot of small companies, service rigs, everything else that is associated with that. And those are the ones that are really suffering at this particular point in time. The big oil and gas is what people like to talk about and demonize all the time. They have opportunities to go to other places in the world. But that isn't the case with our service rigs and our service facilities that we have here. So those are the small and medium businesses that we're talking about. So yes, there are some loans that one can have, and you can take a look at what you might be able to do with some of your employees. But I just wanted to make sure that the small business department understands the significance of those particular businesses and the stress that they're under.
Madam Chair, thank the honourable member for the intervention. We're certainly well aware of those issues, and we are certainly working with our colleagues at BDC, the financial crown corporations, and I would say more generally with the finance ministry and the other central agencies to make sure the small business perspective is brought to the table and that those issues are considered in the design of those programs. I think the honourable member makes a good point, and we're very alive to that.
Thank you very much. The second question I wanted to speak to you about has to do with agriculture. And again, sometimes people think, well, just slough it off to the ag department. But quite frankly, it is small business that, and they are the great entrepreneurs that we have in the country. So, so the Canadian Federation of Agriculture called on the federal government to prioritize Canada's agri-food system to ensure our food supply chain remains secure and reliable. And the CFA also stressed that there should be an emergency fund set up to help farmers and agri-food businesses cope. And even at that, on Monday, the G20 agriculture ministers pledged to cooperate closely and to take concrete actions to safeguard global food security and supply.
Mr. Druschen, I'm sorry, that's unfortunately your round of 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Our next round of 5 minutes goes to MP Lambropoulos. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and I'd like to thank all of the officials for being with us today to answer our questions, as well as the minister who is no longer here, but that's okay. So I would like to first let you know, I've heard from a lot of the small businesses in my riding. I have very many of them. Many of them are really happy with a lot of the supports that have been put in place. And I'd like to also thank you for all of the hard work that you've been doing behind the scenes, because I'm sure that right now is a hectic period for all of you. And these small businesses obviously are going through a lot. And yes, what we've put in place has helped them up until now, but they're thinking and they're obviously uncertain of what the future holds, as we all are. They're wondering what other supports will be available to them once their $40,000 loan, for example, has been used up. Are we considering giving a second loan of that amount? Are we considering other measures to put in place in order to help support these small businesses?
Madam Chair, I might suggest, if it's okay, to have my colleague Paul Thompson speak to this. He's been doing a lot of work on the small business issue, including with our financial crown corporation. So I'll turn it to him.
Thank you very much for the question. As my colleague Simon indicated, we're working very closely with small business owners and stakeholders to get feedback on the measures that are rolling out. We, of course, have talked about the Canada Emergency Business Account. There's the 2 other loan products through the Crown agencies, the EDC loan guarantee and the BDC co-lending product, which provides combined up to $12.5 million in additional lending possibilities for small businesses. There's also the rent relief package, which would be the closest thing to new measures coming up that I would flag, and continuing to monitor the situation with lots of feedback coming in from stakeholders.
And you just mentioned the rent relief. Obviously, that's one of the biggest issues that they have, being able to keep up with their payments. What's the likelihood of being able to come up with agreements with the provinces on this? What are the chances that we actually get that support they need with regards to the rent?
As Minister Ng indicated, this is an area of shared responsibility with the provinces, so it is dependent on landing agreements with the provinces, and there are very extensive efforts underway to do that with full appreciation of the urgency with respect to May 1st and normal rent payment deadlines. So just to say that both orders of government are seized with this issue and working very hard.
Okay, thank you very much. Last but not least, I have a question about international trade. With regards to international trade, obviously, we have a problem with getting the equipment that we need in our hospitals, and we're trying to turn that inwards and make sure that our own industries are able to come up with the amount of equipment that we need. But obviously, we still rely on our international partners in order to get to that. What efforts have been made in order to make sure that we still are getting the equipment necessary from other countries that have them?
So, Madam Chair, it's Emmanuel Kamiranakis from Global Affairs. We have been working closely with our Trade Commissioner Service and repurposed them in a way to kind of focus away from supporting exporters and finding supply chains that we can access to feed our domestic production and also acquire goods. We're working closely with our colleagues at PSPC and PHAC and Health Canada to make sure that we have connections to the right suppliers and are matching what the need is with what the supply is globally.
Okay, thank you very much. Madam Chair, I'm sorry, I haven't been checking my time. Do you know how much I have left?
1 minute. 1 minute.
Thank you very much. So I also, I have one of the big companies in my riding, CAE, which is providing ventilators and working as part of the chain of companies that are providing ventilators to the Government of Canada. And I was wondering, there are many companies that have gone through the process and have not yet received any response, who are trying to provide equipment to our hospitals, but have not yet received a response from the Government of Canada. What process has gone through in order to make sure that these companies are considered once they apply?
Madam Chair, I can answer that question. So just briefly, we've had about 5,000 companies come through the ISED process. We've been just really delighted and floored with the response we've had from industry. We put in place a fairly sophisticated system to screen all of the folks who've come in, and we've actually called every single company back and had a conversation with them. We've had a couple of hundred that have moved on to actually the kind of procurement stage, and we have to.
Mr.
Maybe I'll
Kennedy,
just say that.
Mr.
Yes.
Kennedy, I'm sorry, but that's the time for that round. We'll now move to our 2.5 minute round. Monsieur Savard Tremblay, you have 2.5 minutes. Vous avez 2 minutes et demie.
Oui, merci. Juste être bien certain.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that everyone can hear me. I have a trade question because we're talking about our small and medium businesses that often do a lot of exports. To your knowledge, do you know if other countries have put restrictions to exports of essential needs? Essential products, rather. Inaudible. I can't hear you. Can you hear me now? Yes. I think it might be better that Emmanuel responds to this question, but there are certainly countries that put restrictions in place. I'm going to give my colleague the floor. Yes, thank you. We do know that there are countries that have restrictions in place. We are working with the different consulates, the different embassies, in order to facilitate exports of products that are necessary in Canada. We are also maintaining contact with different partners in order to support Canadian needs. That's something that we are working on a daily basis. We also talked about masks a lot. The supply chains for other essential needs could that lead to shortages in other products?
I can address that question. We have been tracking very closely the number of trade restrictions that countries have been taking in response to COVID-19. The vast majority of those measures to date have been in terms of essential medical items, but we've also seen a growing number of export restrictions placed on agriculture and agri-food.
Parfait, je vous remercie.
Thank you. Can you just tell me how much time I have left, please? You have 11 seconds. So I'd like to thank you for your answers then.
2.5-minute question goes to MP Johns.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Mr. Johns, you just muted yourself.
There we go. Okay, thank you so much. We keep hearing the minister talk about small businesses, micro businesses being a priority, but as I stated earlier, a recent poll through the BC Chamber of Commerce cites that 49% of small businesses with staff of less than 5 aren't able to qualify for the current programs, CEBA or CERB. I've got an interesting one. It's around qualifying for the Canadian Emergency Bank Account. Right now, there's this bizarre clause that says if you're an entity owned by an individual holding public office, you're not eligible. So this applies to school trustees, municipal councillors, mayors. I've got a mayor in my riding that can't access that needs it now. Was this an oversight? Because clearly the only conflict that would be was whether you would want to sit on a school district board ever again if you can't access these federal programs, because they clearly have no influence over decision making at the federal level.
So if I could take that question with respect to eligibility for the Canada, with the CEBA program, the Canada Emergency Business Account, the eligibility, that exclusion you're referring to is for federal members of parliament. It doesn't pertain
that needs to be clarified on the
businesses.
website, because there's people that are not able to do that. They've gone to their lawyers and accountants and they've been advised not to apply based on that in there. So if you could fix that, that would be a really important thing.
We will certainly follow up. Yep.
Thank you very much. Denmark and Poland, they've decided to not give any of their rollout, their emergency rollout to any company that has offices or set up with tax havens around the world. Is this something that you're looking at? Are you going to apply this to the same application here in Canada?
That's something I'd have to take under advisement. And
are you
and follow
looking
up.
at that? I'm just asking, are you currently looking at that right now?
I would have to speak with the Crown agencies that are responsible for the lending decisions on that. So
this needs to be a priority. We need to make sure that Canadian companies and the money stays in Canada. Around credit cards, we know that you were able to work with credit card companies to reduce some of that interest, but they're still 10 points above prime. And I want to know, is the government continuing to work with the banks and the credit card companies so that they're reducing their rates while businesses are closed and have zero revenue? And a lot of them are living off these lines of credit and credit cards.
Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for that round. We will now move to round 3 with a 5-minute question from MP Patzer. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. My question would be for Simon Kennedy again here in regards to our supply chains here. So there's an ongoing concern for maintaining our domestic supply chains, especially for food. This past week saw the temporary closure of Cargill's processing plant in High River, Alberta. That's already on top of the issues that we were having already in Ontario. Are there currently any parts of our supply chain that are at risk of supply disruption?
So, Madam Chair, I know that is an issue that the government is certainly carefully following. I think the specific kind of answer to that question is probably best directed in the case of agriculture to the Agriculture Ministry, and in the case of some of the kind of broader supply chain security issues, I can say that is something that we are working on very closely with colleagues from the Public Safety Ministry and the Finance Ministry and sectoral departments, for example, such as agriculture. And so certainly I'm well aware my colleagues in agriculture are paying very close attention to what's going on in the slaughter sector, for example, and in the incident that the member mentioned in High River. That is very much on the radar screen. So I can confirm that that's something that we're tracking closely and wanting to make sure that those disruptions are minimized.
For sure. Now, lots of our small businesses do rely on other supply chains as well, too, to ensure that they have, the products that they need for their stores. Are there any other supply chain shortages or disruptions that you are aware of or that you are concerned about?
Well, certainly an area that is of significant interest in the immediate term, and I think it's probably perhaps obvious for the committee, but maybe just to underline it, is on the issue of personal protective equipment and various sorts of supplies, medical supplies that are needed to deal with the immediate challenges to health and safety. And I think everybody has seen that the global demand for things like N95 respirators and medical gowns and other protective equipment has risen dramatically. And that's been an area where where supply chains, I think, have been shown to have some real challenges. So that is definitely an area that I would say has been a central kind of focus in the last, say, 5 to 6 weeks, 2 months. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's lots of manufacturing small businesses that have wanted to help out, and they've gone through the online portals and processes, and they've been told, we don't have anything for you right now, or just wait, we'll get a hold of you. But we, like you're saying, we do have shortages and issues. So why are we not allowing industry or our small businesses to be able to join in?
So I would say that there's just for simplicity's sake, there's kind of a couple of different pathways for businesses that have that interest. One of them is the buy and sell website that is being managed by Public Services and Procurement. And the second one is the Made in Canada program that my ministry is responsible for. I can speak to my ministry's work in particular. As I mentioned before to one of the other honorable members, we've had about 5,000 businesses step forward. This is really fantastic. We're using the Industrial Research Assistance Program's advisors. They have technical advisors. There's about 250 of them across the country that are actually speaking with every one of those businesses that have put their hand up to get a sense of their capabilities, what their interests are, what their ability is to retool quickly. And I don't have a precise number now, sir, but I can say we probably have maybe 200 or more firms that have been able to actually retool their operations to produce, sanitizer, work on ventilators. And we're certainly interested in having as many of those Canadian companies participate as possible. And as time goes on, we're going to need more and more firms to kind of come and kind of join the fight. So our plan is to continue to circle back to the firms that have put their hand up, and where we can find opportunities for them, we're very keen to do so. So
thank you for that. I really appreciate that. I'm just wondering if you could maybe potentially table a report to this committee later on about the engagement that you've had with those industries or those different manufacturing companies and small businesses who we're engaged and we're able to help out, so that just we get a broad spectrum of the impact that it has had for those businesses. Moving forward, one of the issues a lot of people and businesses are bringing to my attention is, the financial announcements and measures, they've all been great. However, they're all short term. And we've heard from the minister that we don't actually have a plan on how to get our economy opened again. So we spent, before this week's announcements, we were already at a projected $184 billion deficit. So again, if we only have these short-term plans, we haven't looked long-term. Has the government given you any direction or indication as what a plan might be going forward to get our businesses working?
I don't think, Madam Chair, I would go further than the minister's comments in this regard. I mean, clearly, the Prime Minister has indicated that there are some of those conversations that have started. Our focus in the immediate term is on the health and safety and getting the supply chain to produce the medical equipment. Am I at time?
Unfortunately,
okay. Right.
You are.
Thank you.
Our next round of 5-minute questions goes to MP Johari. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It looks like the conversation is now turning into its focus on PPEs. So to both deputy ministers, both international trade as well as industry, you collectively talked about that we are trying to do our best to source PPEs both internationally and through domestic market domestically by building capacity and optimizing the distribution, and internationally by partnering. Starting with international trade, can you share which countries are we partnering, and what has been some of the challenges and what has been some of the successes? And then I'll provide the second question to Deputy Minister for Industry.
Okay, thank you for the question. Madam Chair, let me just say that have been partnering with quite a few countries, of course, globally. The largest share of PPE equipment coming into Canada would be coming from China, and what we term the Greater China Network, so Hong Kong and Taiwan and the sort of the environment there. And we're getting a significant amount of supply into Canada from those sources. We've also gone out and been more proactive and identified other sources. We've built up capacity to procure from the US, including for supply chain procurement into Canada, and also are working with some European partners and countries in other parts of Asia, including South Korea, Singapore, and a few others, and building those relationships through supply chain channels, and also proactively identifying sources that we may not have identified before, and trying to get ahead of the curve in a very competitive landscape.
Thank you. My riding enjoys the benefit of having a large constituency base that there are Chinese Canadian. They've reached out to me, and many of them are getting involved in the export of these PPE equipment. And what they've shared that they're facing huge challenges around not as much on the sourcing, but being able to get it to the proper distribution through the custom to be able to get it to Canada. And I understand our government, even through its initiative, faced some challenges around getting the product on a timely basis to the airport, so we don't have empty flights coming back. Can you shed some light on that one?
Yes, thank you for the question. Madam Chair, let me just say that it's been a particularly difficult period for procuring international supply at this point. And in particular, in the case of Shanghai, where we've had some of these constraints and these problems, there are some contributing factors that have made it very, very difficult to get supply out of China. Not only is there just huge congestion, and many countries trying to do exactly the same kind of thing that we're doing, there's a global crisis going on. The Chinese authorities are taking the issue very seriously, and to their credit, have been imposing, I think, regulations to make sure that that supply that is leaving is well identified and packaged and ready for international export. And then combine that with the fact that we are also being careful in terms of how we're procuring, making sure the flights that we send in are well taken care of and the crews are well taken care of. So all these things contribute to some difficulties. I have to say, to the credit of our network and Ambassador Barton in China and his team, they have done yeoman's work, a lot of work to make sure that we are able to get supply into our ecosystem.
I thank you for that. I want to quickly go to Deputy Minister for Industry. I'd like to commend the department for great work that they're doing by complementing the, let's say, the financial program that's being tabled by the government, specifically around innovation and expediting research and development and getting the product much faster. One of the questions that's constantly coming as a lot of businesses are reaching out to my office, and they're asking, what are the criteria that they will be assessed when they reach out and they say, I have this capability, I want to be able to retool. How does the department assess? And I'm sure there is an assessment. You indicated that there's 5,000 application and nearly 200 have been already approved. Can you shed some light on that one?
Yes, I'd be happy. Maybe I should just clarify. The 200 is sort of my rough guesstimate. I'd have to provide more specific figures, so maybe don't hold me to that. But we've had certainly a large number that have been able to make a direct contribution. There is actually, when you go on the website and firms are interested, there is kind of a questionnaire, I guess you could call it, but there's kind of a process that they go through to enroll. And the questions in there are really indicative of the kinds of things that we're looking for. So, for example, can they move relatively quickly? If they can only produce a result a year from now, that's obviously going to be of less interest. Do they have a secure supply chain so they're not dependent on stuff from overseas that's hard to get? So we ask those sorts of questions. That's really the kind of criteria that are being applied.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. That's your time. Our next 5-minute round is with MP Rempel-Garner. You have 5 minutes. Madame Rempel-Garner, you're on mute.
Sorry, I pressed unmute and I'm back on. My questions are directed to Mr. Kennedy. Mr. Kennedy, as you're aware, members of this committee over 3 months ago had asked your department to for some undertakings related to the supplementary estimates. I was just listening to the exchange you had with MP Gray, is it my understanding that you've now tabled all of those undertakings, including the questions that I asked? I had 7 questions during that meeting 3 months ago.
Can you hear me okay? My understanding is yes, those have been tabled. It's possible they have not, but I have seen those answers, ma'am, and I've approved them. And so my hope would be they would have been tabled with you by now, but they're certainly coming very soon if you haven't seen them yet.
Do you find it acceptable that your department takes 3 months to get basic answers to questions to a parliamentarian?
I think our wish would always be to try to respond as quickly as possible. That's certainly my undertaking. It has been a bit of a challenge, frankly, to pull together.
I'm sorry.
Sure.
The bureaucracy serves at the pleasure of Parliament. I'd like to remind you of that. And I find it unacceptable that it took 3 months. I don't even know. It hasn't come to me. You're sitting in front of me today, and I haven't been able to review those responses that were related to the supplementary estimates that we had to vote on. So I'm asking you, is your service delivery standard 3 months to respond to undertakings of this committee?
Our service delivery standard has clearly been affected by the crisis and by a pretty dramatic reorientation of how we work, which has been a bit of an adjustment. But typically, we would want to respond. We would want to respond rapidly to questions that the committee raises. I would agree with that.
Well, these undertakings were made well before this crisis unfolded, over 3 months ago. So in the future, when a member of this committee asks your department for an undertaking, how long are we supposed to wait expected to wait before we get this?
We have a point of order on the floor. Yes, Mr. Lloyd.
Madam Chair, I think we're supposed to be addressing the COVID crisis and not supplementary estimates. I wonder if we could stay on track on that.
No, this is on track, Madam Chair, if I may, because my colleague Jeremy Patzer just asked for some undertakings, and I'm trying to establish, given that we're in the middle of the COVID-19 crisis, and the Deputy Minister has just said that his department has reduced capacity to respond to undertaking, what the service delivery standards will be for undertakings related to this committee on the COVID-19 crisis.
Well, Madam Chair, maybe I should just clarify. I think my undertaking is to try to respond to the committee as rapidly as possible. I certainly understand the obligation to be accountable to Parliament. I would not say that our ability to respond has been diminished across the board, but depending on the kinds of questions asked or the information required, to be frank, the timelines may be affected by, for example, if we have to physically pull documents out, that's a very significant challenge now because most employees don't have access to the building. So I will say we will respond as quickly as possible, but there may be some adjustments just given the current circumstances.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. I'm just responding to the point of order. I understand that the documentation that was requested at the previous meeting was circulated to committee members this morning. With that, the House gave us specific instructions to discuss COVID-19. So therefore, I will ask Madame Rempel to continue with her questioning with respect to COVID-19. Thank you.
So just to be clear, Madam Chair, the undertakings were actually distributed after the commencement of this meeting. So if anybody wanted to review those, it would have been impossible as we would have been on that. And with regard to COVID-19, this is an important part of this committee's undertakings. We need to understand, given that the Liberal government has said that parliamentary scrutiny can happen via virtual sittings, if the department has the capacity to maintain undertakings. And what the Deputy Minister has just said is that it might be very difficult. So if that is the case, we have a problem here because we don't have weeks, we don't have months to deal with responding to some of the questions that we have on privacy, on contact tracing, on expenditures. This is supposed to be Parliament's vehicle for scrutinizing department expenditures and the minister's decisions. So what I am asking very clearly is to establish a guideline here while the Deputy Minister is sitting with this committee. If this committee asks for undertakings, how long is it going to take?
Well, Madam Chair, I believe I've already answered the question, so I'm not sure what other information the committee might wish to hear.
Mr. Kennedy, just to be clear, do you find 3 months an acceptable time period to respond to a committee on an undertaking?
Well, as a general proposition, no, but we have experienced an international crisis in the intervening period, which has produced some challenges for us. So I will certainly endeavor to respond as quickly as possible to any future questions the committee asks.
How are you going to put in place systems to respond to Parliament inquiries during this time period so that it's not 3 months in the future?
Well, Madam Chair, we have systems now to respond to parliamentary queries. I have, for example, been signing off on a whole range of, parliamentary questions, access to information requests. I mean, the systems of government continue to move along. We will try to respond.
You can't have it both ways. You can't say you can't do it or do it. It's one or the other.
Garner,
right?
That is your time, and we have time for one last round of questions. 5 minutes with Mr. Erskine Smith. You have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I want to start quickly with Mr. Thompson and the CEBA, and I've received correspondence from constituents who have $18,000 in payroll. I've received correspondence from constituents who poured their heart into a business that opened in November and they don't have $20,000 in payroll last year. Can you explain to my constituents what the rationale is for a $20,000 minimum threshold to access CEBA?
So I would just indicate that there's been a lot of feedback on the whole issue of payroll, and that was what drove the decision to change the payroll parameter from the 50,000 threshold down to the 20,000 threshold. There's clearly continued concern on that, which we're hearing about, and that those views are registered and transmitted and shared with our colleagues at the Department of Finance. Part of the issue is the interaction with the emergency response benefit, which is also available to very small businesses, for example, without fixed costs that need more in the range of income support. But hang
on a sec. There's a clear difference between an individual who has lost income and faces personal costs, and the response benefit steps in, and a sole proprietor who not only faces those same personal costs but also faces continued business costs. And that's exactly what the CEBA is for. It is modest already if we're talking a $40,000 interest-free loan, $10,000 forgivable. And I'm just trying to understand what the rationale is for the $20,000 minimum threshold, because it occurs to me that, of course, you could have criteria that ensures there's an auto approval of the loan, and that makes sense to me. But surely there ought to be some discretion here. I've got another constituent who's been banking with TD for 18 years for his business, but using a personal account, and he's now unable to access the $40,000 interest-free loan because it's not a business account. And surely the bank should have the discretion to say this has been a customer for the last 18 years and this individual should be approved.
Well, Madam Chair, I can just assure the member that issue is very much on the radar, and it's been identified and is certainly being discussed and shared with the Department of Finance and other colleagues across government.
Thanks, Mr. Thompson. Mr. Kennedy, who in your office is best placed to answer questions with respect to digital contact tracing?
Sorry. Well, I could certainly aim to respond to some of those. I may have some senior staff who are here in the virtual room who may be able to provide further details. But I've had some. Go ahead, sir. Sorry.
No, I appreciate that. I mean, whether it's yourself or staff on the call today, I would appreciate sort of an update as to where we are at with digital contact tracing, because we hear the health experts say test, trace, but we have yet to see a clear plan for digital contact tracing.
Well, what I can say is that we're working closely with colleagues in the health ministry, and certainly there have been discussions with provincial officials on the issue of the possibility of technology, facilitating people managing social distancing. There has been a lot of discussion. There's been a lot of discussion in the press, and frankly, just kind of discussion in various meetings about the issue of contact tracing. We probably need a whole other meeting, frankly, to go into the details. But
so that's probably fair, actually. That's a good point, and I think we are going to have a meeting on that. It might be helpful in advance of that meeting. Would you be able to provide a backgrounder as to the steps that the department has taken to date on digital contact tracing, so we are best prepared to ask questions?
I'd be happy to come back to the committee with a couple of pieces of paper if that was of use. What I will say, I think it's really important to just lay this out. The government has been very clear, certainly, as an official, you follow the instructions of your government, that privacy considerations are kind of a foremost concern. And certainly that in the work we're doing with PTs, and we've had a lot of, as part of the industry response, we've had a lot of technology companies approach us, looking at solutions that they have that they think could be useful. And in our assessment of those and in all those conversations, certainly we're uppermost in our mind are, the kind of charter rights of Canadians and those sorts of issues. So I just thought I should underline that.
That's appreciated. My last question is in relation to testing. I know there was an announcement today where we saw $350 million announced for testing and modeling. When I see reports out of the United States to say 20 million tests per day to return the economy, or 3 million tests per week, or various estimates, and when I translate those to the Canadian context, I'm looking at somewhere between 50,000 a day to 2 million a day, depending upon the estimates. We're at 20,000 tests a day right now. What is our goal here for tests a day as we look to restore the economy down the road, or reopen the economy down the road?
Madam Chair, I'll leave this. Oh, okay.
5 seconds if you can answer that quickly.
The specific question of what the right number is really the health ministry's issue, but we are working very closely with them to try to ramp up the domestic ability to manufacture the tests and the various kinds of equipment that are needed for those tests so that we're able to actually hit that number. But the actual specifics of what the number is would be better directed to Health Canada. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And unfortunately, that's all the time we have today, as we have another committee.
Point of order, Madam Chair. Madame la Présidente.
Okay.
We still have two 2.5-minute questions to go here. I believe the NDP and our block members would appreciate to have their times honored still.
MP Patzer, I understand the hope was that we would be able to complete that third round. However, I'm being advised by the clerk that we need to have a sanitation crew come into the room to actually sanitize the room prior to the next meeting. So unfortunately, we do not.
Madam Chair,
time. I'm
point
still
of order.
speaking.
We agree.
I'm dealing with this first point of order, Madame Rempel-Garner. If you would please let me finish. I've asked the clerk to make sure that if we are able to have that last 2.5 minutes for both rounds, I would like to be able to do so, but unfortunately, we have cleaning crew that need to come in.
Madam Chair, we can take 5 minutes and the cleaning crew can wait for 5 minutes while my colleagues get their questions around as previously agreed to. It's a little ridiculous. The clerk can tell the cleaning crew they can wait for 5 minutes. Thank you.
Let me check with the room to see if we can have them hold back. One moment. We are going to go with the last 5 minutes. Monsieur Savard.
Mr. Savard-Tremblay, you have 2.5 minutes. Thank you. We have heard about business credits offered by EDC or BDC. I understand that we are in a crisis period, so we need to get out of the crisis. But have we started thinking about after the crisis? Because each decision that is made or not made will have consequences, and this is going to be a very tough period. Have we considered a debt crisis, and have solutions been considered in that regard? I will give the floor to Mr. Thompson to talk about those issues.
Okay, merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. There are many measures that have been taken. Excuse me for a second.
Although, can you hear me? Yeah, beaucoup de.
There are measures that are already in place. We work with many stakeholders to supervise the implementation of those measures to make sure that we keep an eye on needs, on gaps, and if we need to extend those measures. Right now, we are focusing a lot on loans. There is also the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy. That's what the government has focused on. These business loans were considered to transform those loans in subsidies. Are you considering that still? Madam Chair, I would say that there is a forgivable portion, 25% of the CEBA loan.
I will switch to English in relation to the technical terms.
Unfortunately, that's the only time we have. Our next last round is 2.5 minutes, Mr. Johns.
Thank you. Thank you. So my question is this. We're asking small businesses to close their doors and borrow money so they can pay their landlords, and the landlords can pay their mortgages and pay the banks. What are we asking the banks to do?
There have been, Madame the President, there have been a number of efforts with the banks that the Department of Finance has led in terms of special measures that they're extending on relief on mortgages and relief on interest rates and measures like that. The main measure in play right now that's in development is the rent relief in conjunction with provinces, which will provide.
I hope that's not a bunch more debt for tenants and landlords. What's the banks going to do in terms of eating interest and, coming up with their share? So the other part is I want to go back to what the Danish government and the Polish government are doing. They're asking their government, they're making sure their government doesn't provide aid to companies that register in tax havens, pay out dividends, or buy back their own shares. Is this something that the Liberal government is asking you to look into to make sure that all aid stays in Canada and goes to the people in our country that need it?
Madam Chair, I would just have to repeat my earlier answer that we're going to take that under advisement, and I'd have to pursue that with the Crown agencies that are more directly involved in the lending and the Department of Finance. I unfortunately don't have an answer to that question at present.
Okay, back to a question I had earlier on Minister Ng around CERB and being able to be eligible for CERB. The government right now is gauging employment income for proprietors as a barrier. So if you have over $1,000 of employment income, even if you're paying rent of $2,600 a month, like a constituent of mine, and she's literally losing thousands of dollars a month and can't apply for CERB. She's closed her store, she's opened an online store, and she can't access CERB. Are you going to fix it so that it's based on profit or loss and net profit instead of gross income?
Madam Chair, as we've indicated, these examples are hugely important, and we're passing them on, and there's continual reassessment of the measures. But I would also indicate that there are other measures in play.
They can't access any of these measures. They can't access CEBA. They're going to walk away. They can't feed their families. They're going to put their hands up. You got to fix this now.
I would just mention that there are other supports. Excuse me, Madam
Chair. They're not accessing them. They can't access them.
Mr. Gord, Mr. Johns, I'm sorry, that is all the time that we have for today. We've completed the 3 rounds. And with that, I'd like to thank everybody for their patience, for all the witnesses that were here today, the technicians, the clerks, the analysts, the translation services. I know that with practice, we will get much better at this. So thank you very much. And with that, I hope to see you next week. Thank you.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Merci aux